All right, we're talking with Jeff Tremaine, who you may know best from being the director of the Jackass TV show and the movies. You did direct the TV show also, right, Jeff?
Yeah. I'm a co-creator of the whole thing. So.
Yeah. So, and also the director of movie The Dirt about Motley Crue, based on Nikki Sixx's book. From doing that, was that the catalyst to do this docuseries, Nothing But a Good Time?
Yeah, definitely. The fact that I did that movie, it was my old TV agent optioned the book and asked me if I would partner up and do it, and it just sounded like a really fun idea, so I got involved, and it was definitely related to The Dirt, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, and this is something that we love here on the Pike, because every weekday we do this feature called The Haircut, and we always ask the listeners to rate for hairiness, which is like we call it the whole hairy package. It's the hair, it's the makeup, whether they shop for clothes at the Halloween outlet or the women's activewear section at Macy's, and then we also have the sleaze whiz factor. Is it sleazy? Is it cheesy enough? So I'm very much looking forward to this documentary. Who are some of the guests that you talked to?
We talked to a lot of musicians, a lot of the band members, like Jack Russell. We got an interview with him before he passed away, the singer of Great White. We talked to Bret Michaels, but we also talked to like these awesome managers and record producers. So you get a full picture of the scene.
It really is like the managers who have the overview, right? Because sometimes the band members can't necessarily remember what went on.
Right. Yeah, like we talked to Alan Niven, who was both Great White's manager and also Guns N' Roses manager, and both of those bands were difficult to manage, if you can imagine. So he's been calling back a few times. And same with Doc McGee. He was Motley Crue's manager in the early days, but also Bon Jovi's and Skid Row's manager. And that dude is just, they've both seen it all and tell it in the funniest ways, the story. So, they were great to talk to. But also the musicians. We did a ton of musicians. So.
Did anyone get back to you after the segment was done, like maybe a week later after thinking about it, and say, hey, could you just cut me out of the whole thing? Like they realized what they said?
I don't think so. I think everyone, I try to make it comfortable for them to just tell the stories and, forget about it being a different era, right? And most of them, I'm treating this scene with, total respect and just letting them be honest. And, no one, the goal was to get them to just not bite their tongue on the interviews, right? And so, no one ever called back and said, hey, cut that part out or this part out. So maybe I'll get the calls after it airs, but I didn't get any of it after we did the interview. So
I always kind of equated the Sunset Strip scene or the hair metal scene to the black metal scene in Scandinavia for a couple of reasons. One, they both wore makeup, and two, there was a huge one-upsmanship going on between the bands, where in the black metal scene, it's like, I sacrifice a goat. Well, I burned down a church, and other horrible things. But in the hair metal scene, it's like, hey, I had a threesome last night. It's like, oh yeah, well, I had a foursome. And one is like, well, I had a horse involved, so there was a lot of that in there, right?
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure that there's one-upmanship, and then, the scene sort of dies by it sort of copying itself, and then as they get successful, certain people see that success and want to emulate that, or the record industry is looking for more of this, and you start to get copies of copies of copies, and eventually the scene sort of just implodes. There was definitely a lot of one-upmanship, though, there's no doubt.
With what you just said, you think a scene like this, and this was a scene, this wasn't just like the bands, this was everybody, they got immersed in it, it was truly sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And a lot of people lived it, and unfortunately some people were victims of it. But with that, do you think a scene like that could have survived if everybody had a camera on their phone like today?
Yeah, I don't know, because it was just a different mindset back then. But probably not. I think seeing it makes it different than just hearing about it. So I don't know. I wish everyone had a camera back then when you're making a documentary like this. I wish there was more footage. But But we did uncover some great archival stuff, so that, hopefully there's a lot of stuff you've never seen before. But no, I think, social media and everyone having camera on them probably tampers down some of the bad behavior. So, yeah, in a way, thank God there weren't cameras back then. And then as a filmmaker who's trying to document this, it's a shame that there weren't more cameras back then. So I don't know.
Someone I was listening to, it was you and Ricky Rackman were talking, and he's in the docuseries too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so he went off on the term hair metal and how he thought it not so much was disrespectful, but it just didn't explain the whole thing about all the bands that were part of this scene. Yeah, did you have anyone who thought the same way, that they didn't like the term hair metal?
I almost think none of them liked that term, but and I was staying away from calling it that out of respect to the musicians. But as we did the interviews, I'd hear them refer to it as, hair bands and hair metal. So unfortunately, that's the category that people know it as. That's why we put it in the title. It's by no means out of disrespect. It's just what I wanted people to know. It's about this specific era. But to call it, hair bands, well, every band in the 80s was a hair band.
Yes.
Even the new wave scene, the punk scene, everybody had a funny hair back then. So, but it's just the category that people, almost everybody knows it as. So that's why we put it in the title. But yeah, I don't like the name of it as the category, but that's just what it is. So.
Well, in all fairness, they really did very little to dispel that. Seriously, you had some bands that didn't exactly have gigantic hair or wear a lot of makeup. I just played the band Junkyard this morning. Those were actually a bunch of punk rock guys, who they were just dressed like bikers.
Baker.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I know, right? It was Minor Threat and Bad Religion, but at one time he was doing the thing. But then you have bands like, you talk to Bret Michaels, like Poison really brought it, the whole image thing, the hair part, to a big level. So, when someone says, "Oh, you shouldn't call it hair metal," I'm like, well,
right.
They didn't do much to dispel that.
Yeah, and it's a very broad category too. We're covering, Quiet Riot and Motley Crue and then Poison and Warrant and everybody in the middle there, and then Guns N' Roses. Each of those bands they're not all the same exact category, right? But it's just the era that this whole scene was born in that covers them all. But yeah, Poison was definitely living the party, and then Guns N' Roses, kind of put more like just gnarly street back into it. But yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah,
it's weird that there's a row that fits it all. But yeah,
just a couple more things before we go. What do you think was the biggest factor in? I guess the best word to use, the downfall of that genre of music, of hair metal, of that scene. It didn't go away. It wasn't destroyed completely. In fact, I think it's the more interest is coming back now. But what do you think it was that brought that down? Was it the lifestyle, or was it the advent of alternative music like grunge?
I mean, look, it's not that the Nirvana didn't kill it per se. There was definitely a cultural change, which there always is. This scene lasted for 10 years, but I think I said it already. Like, it was a scene that sort of ate itself. It imploded by just, success breeded success, that then it starts to become, a caricature of itself. And then at that point, there's nowhere else for it to go. So something new is coming always, right? And there was definitely a cultural shift where it stopped being about the vanity and the party. And, Nirvana came in, they represented sort of the cultural shift that was happening.
Finally, is there a scene now, current day, that you could compare that scene to? Because I was thinking about this all day yesterday, and I'm like, there is nothing that has come along like that. I mean, at that level.
If there is, yeah, I definitely not at that level, because I would be aware of it, right? Like,
right.
Like, I'm older now. I was an 80s kid who was tapped in, and now as you get older, you're never going to be as tapped in as you were. So I'm sure there's cool scenes happening, right? And all, but it's definitely not as obvious as this scene was. I mean, this scene, you could not go on the Sunset Strip. When I moved to LA in '89, I avoided the Sunset Strip because it was like Mardi Gras. It was so crowded, you couldn't even go there. And everyone looked outrageous. Like, it was a total party on the Strip. But yeah, if there is a scene, it's not as big as it was. That's for sure. But
just as fun, right?
For sure.
All right, Jeff Tremaine. He is the director of Nothing But a Good Time, the docuseries about the hair metal scene in the '80s and getting up to. How far do you take it? Like how in years? What year do you kind of stop at?
I think it goes from about 79 to I guess into the 90s, and then we give you a what's happening now. Like all these bands are just doing great now because part of it's nostalgia, but there's a huge young population that is at these shows. But the scene itself is probably let's call it 81 to 92, right?
Yeah, that seems right, definitely, and that's on Paramount Plus right now. Everybody, make sure you're watching it. Jeff Tremaine, thank you so much for joining us, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.